I hope you all enjoyed Jay Kelly. Let me introduce you to members of the cast and the film here. This is Patrick Wilson right here. Emily Mortimer, co-screenwriter. Riley Keough. And here comes Adam Sandler and George Clooney. And Noah Baumbach, writer, director, producer. We fit you all right on this stage here. So
It's really nice of you.
yeah.
Nice to see you all.
Isn't it nice to see Adam all dressed up?
Last time. Enjoy it.
I want to thank you for coming straight from your premiere tonight in Hollywood, right? Yeah, all the way over here. I watched it again tonight. I'd seen it right before it premiered in Venice, but I'd never seen it with a crowd. And it just plays so well. It's funny. It's sad. I think it's everything you wanted, Noah. Congratulations. It really is.
Nice.
Can you talk about just explain how this came about? Because I know they say write what you know, and you certainly know this business and you've been around it a long time. But this is also a movie that I think can play to anybody. I mean, in their lives. And was that the idea, to talk about somebody like, did I live my life the way I should have? Or do I have regrets? That kind of.
Yeah, well, I think when you're younger, you have a feeling of you have all the time in the world, and you make bargains with yourself, and, you know, oh, I'll do this, but I can always go back to this, or, you know, and I think you reach a point where you kind of have the shocking realization that this is the one time you're doing it. And these decisions and choices you made had consequences. And so I think when Emily and I started writing about an actor going through a crisis on a journey, in some ways we sort of liked the world of that, and it seemed kind of compelling to us. I think the themes started to reveal themselves as we wrote them. And I think, you know, it's sort of like, why did we pick an actor? Well, I don't know, but then we started to know, you know. And then, of course, when you have a mic in your hand and you sit in front of an audience of people, you have to sound like you meant it all from the beginning. But you know, I think a lot of those things, the meaning of it kind of reveals itself more once you start to get character and story right. And, you know, really once you start telling a good story, I think the meaning kind of shows itself.
When did George Clooney come into your head on this?
I think like once we kind of had the character and we knew kind of who Jay was, you know, then of course we started to think, well, who can play this? And George was my ideal, and I'd met him before, and I've known him over the years, and I've wanted to work with him. And when we were doing the rounds for Squid and the Whale, I was doing it for Squid and the Whale, and he was doing it for Good Night and Good Luck. And he saw me, and he said in that George Clooney way, he said, if you ever need an actor. And
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah. But I remembered, and I called him, and I said, I'm cashing in that shit. And he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. No.
There's very few actors I can think of, unless you're going to cast a complete unknown, where it makes so much sense when you look at George Clooney. But you so inhabit this character, and watching it this time, George, I wasn't thinking George Clooney. I was thinking Jay Kelly. This is this guy. And I don't know what it took to convince you to do this, to do a story.
Oh, Pete, come on. First of all, you do this enough. You see this. How often do we, and you guys all see movies, how often do you see a movie that's got such a beautifully written script? And you have such an extraordinary director. You know, I didn't even read the script. They called me and said, you want to do the movie with Noah? And I think Adam was already attached. And it's like, yes, of course. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. And I'm 64 years old. I don't get those kind of roles sent to me anymore. So, no, this wasn't difficult to say yes. This was the easiest yes ever.
You don't get this kind of role? I mean, every now and then there's a script.
Well, there was Batman and Robin, and and I know you guys, I know you think I'm the best Batman. I know that. Yes, thank you. No, things change as you get older. You know, you have to kind of make peace with that, and they don't always happen. So, no.
What do you think when you look at that last scene there and you see, you know, we're watching Jay Kelly, but we're watching Jay Kelly with George Clooney's career. And actually, it's a great sizzle reel. It really, you know.
I don't know. There's an awful lot of bad hairdos in that.
What did you think when you shot it? Were you actually watching it, or how did that come about?
Noah had not told me that it was going to use my actual movies in it. And so the take you see in the film is the first take. When I grab Adam's hand and I'm holding Adam's hand, it's because I didn't really know. They're projecting it, and he's got an orchestra playing the music, and I had no idea that it was actually going to be, you know, my actual films. And it's a little disturbing watching yourself age on screen, but it was, listen, everything about it was fun and great. Yeah.
And you're sitting next to this guy, Adam, who I think was born to be a manager after watching this movie.
I would do that, yeah.
I mean, you nail that whole dynamic. And I'm not going to mention names, but I know a few actors, big actors, and their managers, and they are tied together like that. It's a very realistic portrayal.
That's true, yeah.
Of what you see in this business, too. So you worked with Noah before in Meyerowitz Stories.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what was it about playing this particular character that appealed to you?
I mean, first of all, Noah told me he was writing it with Emily like a year before I saw it, right? So I was just excited the entire year knowing it was coming and that I was going to get to do a movie with Noah again. And when I read it and I knew George was playing Jay Kelly and I knew my character was just going to give himself to this man and love him so much and be on his team and back up everything he was going for and try to just be his best friend. It was just exciting and easy to do, to love this guy and care about him. And I've seen it like all of us here. We've been working a long time. We've had people that work with us that care about us, and I like being on that side. It was nice.
Yeah. And you're getting your own tribute because they just announced you're getting the Malton Master Award this year at the Santa Barbara Film Festival.
That's great.
For this. And, it's all happening, Adam.
Thank
you're
you.
Thank you.
Did you get me that? Okay.
You're going to have to sit there and be like him watching your life roll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Emily, I got to ask you, how did it come about that you were working on the screenplay with him? You're in this movie as well, but in terms of co-writer, how did that collaboration come about?
It was really through my kids. It was this sort of strange nepotism in reverse where my children got cast in Noah's movie of White Noise. And I found myself, along with my husband, as their chaperone in Cleveland, Ohio for many months, and was lucky enough to sort of spend time with Noah and his family as our kids starred in his movie. So at the end of all that, he told me this idea that he'd had for this film. And I said, that's a film I'd like to watch. And he said, would I like to write it with him? And I said, yes. It was reverse nepotism that got me the gig.
And what was that like writing this with Emily? Because it just crackles on the screen, the dialogue here. There's one line after another. I really noticed it tonight watching it again here, too.
It was a pleasure. I mean, I think we get along well. I kind of particularly like myself when I'm with Emily. Everything sounds like a little bit funnier and a little bit smarter. I mean, that's kind of the best collaborations are, is I think you bring out the best in each other. Hopefully, Emily, I think, is just brilliant. She doesn't need me. But when you're working, it's true working with the actors, too. I mean, it's like there's you and there's them. And then there's this other thing that comes, this energy that the two of you create. And you create something that's sort of beyond anything that either of you could do individually. And I think that's definitely how I felt working with Emily, that we were kind of making something that would have certainly that I wasn't going to be able to do on my own.
Can I ask you about that brilliant opening scene, the one shot basically going through the whole studio? It's a love letter to the art of movie making, but everything going on in the busyness of it. How did that come about and how difficult was that to pull off?
Well, it was something we worked a long time on in early prep. Lena Sandgren, who shot the movie, and I would go down to the stage before anybody had, the actors were by their pools, I'm sure, sipping their margaritas. We were working with like the PAs and the accountant, and we were blocking it all out and putting it together and working with the production designer, Mark Tildesley, also on the concept for the set, because it has this forced perspective too. The set looks like nothing from pretty much every angle until you get exactly the right angle. Everything falls in that New York skyline, and it has a kind of old-fashioned quality to it, which we all like. But then as actors became available and people who were local, we started to add them on. And then George and Adam had 2 weeks of rehearsal before we started shooting. So we shot it on the first day of filming, too. And I should add, actually, that the quote that opens the movie, the Sylvia Plath quote, that's part of the shot. It was in black on glass, and we had smoke come up to reveal. So when the white smoke comes, you see the quote. So that's all done practically. And then we would rack focus through the glass, and you'd see the man in the back. He said, we're coming to the end, and we start, and Emily, and then we'd go on and do the whole shot through We always thought the dog was going to be a thing, but the dog was amazing. The dog, I mean, in the beginning, I was like grabbing onto things, hoping the dog was going to come through. But then after a while, it was like, the dog's no problem. It's, I've got to focus
was
on
Adam and I that were the problem.
I've got to focus on these guys, and then George also has to, he's playing a character in a movie, immediately he's playing a character. We haven't even really met Jay Kelly, and we're meeting him playing somebody else. And he's doing a death scene. And, he has to be good, too. So it's like, it's also, all of that stuff. Then George has to do some real acting there. And, but it was a great bonding experience.
The first take got blown because George, when he did the dying scene, I didn't know what was coming. I ran up there. I said, "Are you okay?" I thought my friend was dying, and then Noah grabbed me and said, "You ruined the entire." But I had to. I love him.
Thank you.
I gave you a copy of the script and said, "Why don't you maybe read this tonight?" But it united everybody, and I think in a really nice way. Also, to start the movie when you're watching it, I think it was like for us as a crew, a lot of the crew's in it too, because it's one of the few times you can actually show everybody and not worry about it. I think it was a great way to start the journey of our shoot.
Great cinematography, production design, all of those elements are so throughout this movie.
It was a wonderful crew, and Jacqueline Duran, I should mention, as a costume designer, is amazing. We were blessed with this group.
I'll tell you one really quick thing because I don't want this to get lost. There's no visual effects in this. This is all done in camera. So when I go from the plane to the acting class walking out the back, the acting class is built on the back of the thing. And when we're in the trees at the end, it's literally Riley's hiding behind a tree, right? Literally like hiding, like, can you see me? And then she pops out. So it was all done like old-fashioned filmmaking. There's a joy to it that really made a difference.
That comes off on the screen. I kept watching this thinking, God, why don't they make movies like this anymore? Why aren't the studios so interested in doing these kind of human stories, which used to be the way Hollywood was? And it's harder and harder. It takes actors like you to get it going. I know that. And a director and a writer who sees it and wants to do it. But it's so great to see it again like this. It is old-fashioned in that way. And you pointed to Riley Keough here, and you have two heartbreaking scenes in this when you talk about why he wasn't there for you. And it's so honest to watch you play that. Can you talk about that and working with George in those two scenes? You mentioned the woods.
Well, I think that the writing's very good. So I think crediting the writing is definitely in order because I find good writing to be easy to perform. Also working with George, who's a very lovable person, which isn't always the case.
I'm not always lovable.
Depends on the day. No, I found it very easy to create that relationship with him.
Yeah, particularly with the therapist, that guy, and I know.
He was great.
Remember, we couldn't get through it.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Because he starts crying, and I just would get up and leave. I mean, it was
There's a lot of crying in this movie. And
tell him about your crying
A lot of
issues.
men
yeah,
crying.
because Patrick, so much of your scene, you're in tears here.
Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. Yeah, the first time I saw the film, I mean, and I saw Billy Crudup scene. How great is Billy, by the way? He's in London right now, so if we clap loud enough, he'll hear us. No, he was so fantastic in the movie. But as I'm watching the film, he's got this amazing scene that's really like the inciting incident of the film, right? He cries. It's a great scene with George. Then by the time they get to their therapy scene with Josh Hamilton, Josh is crying. And then I'm thinking in my mind, oh, God, the next time it's going to be me and Adam. Like, God, I hope our crying is good. Like, it's going to be ridiculous. I'd never seen the scene before. Is there too much crying? Are they going to be bored by the time they get to me? Like, when do I come into this movie? What's really very funny. But obviously, to share the screen with these guys was an absolute treat. And watching Adam in that scene with us when I fired
We
the
did
guy.
that together. That was great.
We
man.
did, but you, I mean,
We pulled it out of each other, man. We had to do that.
You were remarkable. It was really pretty
I'm going to
special.
say it was you, and I made it. I loved it.
But you look at that and, I have to think all of you have been around this business a while and you know people and different people. Did you pull from people? I'm not going to ask you to name names, but are you thinking, yeah, I know a guy like this, like Patrick? Do you know? Yeah.
It's me. No, it's not. no. Sure. It's like that. I know those actors that there's a totally aloof and absurd side to my Ben Alcock because the guy has no concept of anything else going on, which was fitting because I too had no idea what else was going on. For instance, I've said this before, but I didn't read the script, and that was on purpose. I don't normally do that, I promise you. But because we were all on our own journey, and that's kind of how this movie kind of fits together. Everybody's on their own journey coming into George and Adam's life, right? And so for me, the first thing I did when I watched the movie and I saw the scene where I met George on the street. Now, when we shot it, I just see, George Clooney, who I barely knew. We had rehearsed, but I see this guy in this bedraggled suit. And I thought, where is he coming from? Like, if I knew the script, I would understand. Like, is he drunk? Is he tired? And so the whole time I'm watching the movie, the first time I thought it, I said, man, I didn't even ask that guy if he needed a ride. I was like, wow. But I guess what it showed me is how much look, our first job, right, is to tell the story. How do you fit into the story, right? And so I was really a foil to both of these guys in their scenes, and specifically with George, his solo journey, so isolating. And then I roll in with like 30 people coming out of a bunch of minivans, right? So that was really the joy for me, is just, like Riley said, taking these words and just riding the wave, because the path that they had created, that Emily and Noah had created for us, was so easy to follow. You just had to give in. And there's a real freedom in that you don't get a lot as an actor. You always want the script to just be so solid that you just give yourself over to it. And I think that's one of the reasons that I was so on board with not feeling like, well, I got to know where I'm coming from, who else, and what the whole play was. Like, there was a real strength to just going, you know what, this journey is like Ben Alcock's journey, and I don't care. I don't know what's going on with anyone else, and it doesn't really matter. And I think it pays off because it carries the weight, because otherwise, how can you see a guy that you've only met twice and then have this scene that's a very important scene for Adam, right? Starts his downfall, that he goes from that to the scene with George after that. So for me, it was just knowing your place in the film, because the film is so well structured. So it was just an absolute joy to just get on the bus.
I was just going to say that because I scribbled down. I can't see in the dark, so this is really what I don't do when I'm a film critic. But I wrote these things, and I can read it here. But Jim Broadbent, Stacy Keach, Billy Crudup, who you mentioned, Laura Dern, all of you come in and you go out. You're there and then you're not. And the structure of it is so impressive. This is a truly great ensemble playing out here. All of them, everybody in it is memorable and fully three-dimensional. And you wrote it that way, obviously, but in casting it, it was very important to get the right people, too.
I think Patrick touched on this. I think, so much of the movie, it's called Jay Kelly, and Jay Kelly's journey, his sort of outward and inward journey is obviously is a central part of the movie, but part of his journey is also him coming in contact with a world that is indifferent to him, the world that is not in his control, where there isn't necessarily cheesecake everywhere in every room he goes into. And so it's so important that everybody you meet suggest a life and a world of their own, as Patrick was talking about. And so, not all movies that I've done feel like, oh, you want to recognize or know who the people are. Sometimes movies benefit from having a cast of unknowns or anything. But I really felt in this movie, I wanted just sort of like the best of the, and people that the audience would have a history with when they see them. So like you hear about Ben Alcock for so long, and then he comes on and you're like, oh, great, it's Patrick. And Billy comes in the beginning and you're like, something, Billy Crudup's great, something interesting is going to happen. Like you want people to kind of lean in with all these people. And I think I can't go through every actor in the thing because there's so many of them and they're all so formidable and so great. So of course I was so privileged that everybody agreed to be part of it. Like Laura Dern, who I've worked with before too. I was, called her and I was like, I was so excited for you to play this part, but just so you know, you leave after like about a third of the movie, which is kind of, pretty stupid to get rid of Laura Dern when you could keep her for the rest of the movie. But that is, in some ways, that is you feel the disappointment and the loss for Jay because you feel you really miss those actors as well, And the movie's also about performance. I mean, how we're all performing in so many different ways, and he's an actor. And so to see performance and see these actors be so great. And the movie also strips away. Billy actually acts out, shows you kind of what acting is, in reading the menu and so I feel like it is, as you pointed out too, it has a love and my love and our love for the medium and for movies and for film. And so I think it needed to also celebrate acting in a certain way.
That was it, right from that brilliant opening scene, right to his last words, I want to do it again. That is a great line. There are so many great lines in this, but I got to ask George, because I scribbled down a couple of things that I was noticing really this time. The mirror, looking in the mirror, Jay Kelly, Gary Cooper, Jay Kelly, Cary Grant. Do you do that in front of your mirror?
I do it every day. I go, George Clooney, Pete Hammond. George Clooney.
There you go.
No,
That's such an interesting, it's a great scene.
It's an interesting thing because, yes, I mean, I think he's looking at it, trying to hold himself up to the sort of the greats and coming up short, which I think is fair. It was also a complicated shot. That's another of those shots where I'm looking in a reflection in a mirror. I duck down and wash my face. The camera goes off onto my daughter out on the train platform. In the meantime, I duck underneath the crane arm. They pull out the mirror. They put in just a frame, and now I'm playing my own reflection in the.
Because we know we're going into the memory, so when he pops up, and so as the camera comes around and reveals him in the mirror, it's now George playing his own reflection.
Yeah, which I do very well. I'm very good at that.
And so when we push in, we can now go through the mirror. And so when he looks in the corner of what's the mirror, but is actually now the camera lens, he turns around to see something behind him, but it's actually all in front of us. And it's Riley waiting with the kids, and she's in the care center. Then the camera pushes past George, and Jacqueline has made him his outfit has magnets and Velcro, so he can tear off the jacket and shirt. And he has the shirt that he wears, the sort of red cowboy shirt that he wears in the memory. So he says the first few lines off camera, and when he re-enters, he's got that shirt on because he shed his other thing. It's all part of the same take. And that was always the case. We were shooting always the present and the past in one take. It was always the thing. And then the camera would go, and we shot the whole rest of that scene. Again, it's, you have the people who can do that, and so you might as well.
Because those memory sequences are just flawlessly done.
Yeah,
I mean,
one was complex, and again, it was it was a pleasure to do. And I think you do, as you said, you feel it. You feel the difference than if you, jazzed it up.
I ruined the first take on that one too. I didn't realize. I ran. I said, "Is George okay?" I came in just to help out, and I said, "Is George okay? He has magnets on his shirt." And then you said, "God damn you."
I know. I said, "I'm going to do this again, but here's another copy of the script."
And then you can say, "Where's the dog?"
It's day.
Where's the dog? I thought you'd. Man, I missed that dog.
It's day 40 of the shoot, and I think maybe you should go read the script.
And before we go, because I am getting a signal, because I got to get you back to your premiere, all the way back to Hollywood. I know what driving's like in L.A. I can't thank you enough for coming out.
You're all coming with us.
Yeah. But I want to, first, I just want to say I love train movies, every kind of, and this is a really good train movie. When you see Strangers on a Train or North by Northwest or Some Like It Hot, or I can go on and on with train movies. But this one, the way it navigates the camera work, everything, and the energy of it just never stops. It's just terrific in every way. I want to thank you for coming out, because you see, this is PBS SoCal.
Oh, that's cool.
We are supported, and we're supporting PBS with this screening series, which I've done for over 20 years. And PBS is in a bit of trouble right now, and we're still alive. We're continuing it. This is our finale for this.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, guys.
For coming out.
Good to see you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.